Greetings and welcome to an updated video on the SHIELD Act. This is Senate Bill 2588 that became state law on July 1st, 2026. And this is what you need to know to protect your right to vote. And it is brought to you by the Jackson Federation of Teachers, Paraprofessionals, and School-Related Personnel. We are AFT Local 4402 here in Jackson, Mississippi. And if you need to contact us, you can visit our website at www.jftpsrp.com. Very quickly, this is what we will be covering in this presentation. We will talk about registering to vote and what that looks like now. We'll talk about pending status, annual statewide checks, proof of citizenship, protecting your voting rights, why you might be flagged anyway, what this means for JFT members, also for the general public, and what you can do. So, what happens when someone registers to vote as of July 1st, 2026? Well, this is what is going to happen. When a person registers to vote, the county registrar must now, step one, enter your information into the statewide voter system, checking it against ID records, the statewide database, and the federal SAVE database or any of its successors, as the way the law is written. And understand that some of this already exists. This is just adding a few extra steps in, mainly the SAVE database. If the system cannot verify that the person is a citizen, the registrar must send a notice by mail asking to prove citizenship. What's going to trip people up is if there is not a driver's license number or a couple of other things on that initial application for registering to vote. Perhaps the name is different than what's on identification. And that's going to put you in a higher category of being flagged. But again, if the system cannot verify that the person is a citizen, the registrar must send a notice by mail asking to prove citizenship. And after that, the applicant has 30 calendar days to respond and prove citizenship. If they do, then they are considered registered. If not, they go into pending status. So what is pending status? Well, a voter in pending status can still vote, but only by affidavit ballot. That's a paper ballot set aside until eligibility is confirmed. And here's the problem with affidavit ballots. An affidavit ballot will only count if the voter can provide proof of citizenship within 5 business days after voting. And notice that that comes from the Secretary of State's Mississippi Voter Information Guide from 2026. If the voter never responds, she or he remains pending until after 2 federal elections, and after that, the voter is marked rejected and removed from the rolls. Please understand, you can vote, but it will not count until that proof of citizenship is taken to the county registrar. Annual statewide checks, how you can get purged from the voter rolls. Every year, the Secretary of State must compare the entire voter roll to the SAVE database. I am told that is not going to happen for this year because it's going to be too close. Personally, I don't trust that. However, that is what I'm being told. But the Secretary of State each year will compare the entire voter roll for the state of Mississippi to the SAVE database or any of its successors. And any non-citizen matches will be sent to the county election commissioners, who then must send the voter a notice and place them in pending verification until they can prove their citizenship. Yeah. So what counts as proof of citizenship? First of all, a birth certificate, original or legible copy. U.S. passport or copy of ID pages. Now, let me be honest, I'm not sure if there are any requirements as far as having a copy of any of this and what that has to look like. Naturalization certificate or certificate number or any document allowed under federal immigration law. For most of us, that is going to be the top two: birth certificate, U.S. passport. If you were not originally born in the United States as a United States citizen, meaning you were born outside of the country, but you were not born with U.S. citizenship, you're going to need to provide a naturalization certificate or any document allowed under federal immigration law. But here's the problem with that. All of these documents cost money. And there's a lot still being worked out with this. It sounds a lot like a poll tax, not going to lie, but here we go. Mississippi's certificate of live birth is $17 for the first copy and $6 for each additional copy. That is available from Mississippi Vital Records and Health Statistics Office. It's located in Ridgeland, Mississippi, off of Highway 2 or Interstate 220. U.S. passport costs $165 for a first-time passport book. It is available from the federal government and takes roughly 4 weeks to get back. Passport card, also available from the federal government, takes some time to get back. And just as a side note, passport cards are not valid for international air travel. They function to get you across the borders at Canada and Mexico and a handful of other places. But it is acceptable, as far as my understanding, for proving your citizenship for voting purposes. A naturalization certificate replacement costs approximately $555. That is a federal USCIS, that is United States Customs and Immigration Service fee. And a marriage license is $17, available from Mississippi Vital Records and Health Statistics Office. Now, why is the marriage license there? Well, if you are married and have changed your name or hyphenated your last name, or you are a person who, for whatever reason, has changed your name from the name you were born with, you may need a marriage license or multiple marriage license to show the progression of how your name has changed. And I should take a moment to say that anything from Vital Records and Health Statistics Office, it's going to take a while if you mail it. If you make a trip to the office in Ridgeland, generally speaking, you can walk out of there with it in a relatively short amount of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. But there's no guarantee on that. And this is part of the problem with this law is all of these things cost money and all of them take time to procure. And if you are a person who has any kind of issues that would prevent you from adhering to a very strict schedule, then this is going to be a burden. There's no other way to put it. So, what should members do to protect their voting rights? Well, first of all, if you are registering to vote, please use your full legal name exactly as it appears upon your ID. Include your driver's license number if you have one, because that reduces mismatches and helps prevent you from being accidentally flagged. And one of the most important things is to make sure your mailing address is correct with the Department of Public Safety and the Voter Registration Office, because all of these notices are sent to you by mail. If you happen to receive a citizenship verification letter, first things first, do not ignore it. Do not ignore it because the clock is already on. You have to respond within 30 calendar days with one of the accepted documents. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if that's the date of the letter, the date you received it in the mail, or what. So imagine that it is the earliest date possible, the date that the letter was dated, and work from there. If you do not have any of these documents, we recommend that you start the process of obtaining those documents immediately. They take time to process, with the passport taking the longest. It is always best to have them up front ahead of time because then all you have to do is reach into your wallet and pull out, for example, my passport card. And boom, I've got documentation that I am a United States citizen right there in front of me. Now, I've kind of said this already, but I want to repeat. If you are at a higher risk of being flagged, naturalized citizen, or person without a driver's license, etc., you should have your documentation already available so that if you receive one of these letters, you can respond immediately because it takes time to obtain those documents if you don't already have them. If you're placed in pending status, you will still be able to vote, but only by affidavit. And as a reminder, you have 5 business days following the election for your ballot to count. That gives you roughly a week. Because if the election is on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, skip the weekend, Monday, Tuesday. It gives you about a week, and that's not a lot of time. If you are rejected or removed from the voter status, I will say this: it is not clear that if you're rejected, you will need to provide proof of citizenship at registration, like when you re register. If you've been flagged, you will need your documentation ready when you re register in the event you are flagged again. And this comes from Lily Mowens with Mississippi Votes via some email feedback based on previous versions of this video. Why might members be flagged even if they're citizens? Well, based on how SAVE and DPS matching works, people might be flagged if their name has changed. Marriage, divorce, adoption, gender identity. If their birth name doesn't match their ID, their birth certificate name doesn't match their ID. For example, possibly people who've been married, people who've been adopted. Again, gender identity issues. They were born out of state, hyphenated or multi-part names. Their driver's license information is outdated. They registered to vote without a driver's license number. And this is the place where I have to say, even for myself, I feel confident that I am okay. But at the same time, when I registered to vote all those years ago, I don't know if I put a driver's license number on that form or not. I also know that my driver's license number was different in those days because Mississippi used to use social security numbers as your driver's license, which now they no longer do. So who knows? What does this mean for Jackson Federation of Teachers members and honestly for the general public? Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of confusion about this law, and confusion is part of the point. We have this history in this state of if we can make it convoluted enough, people will self-censor, so to speak, or they will do what we want them to do by not doing anything. I don't want to lay any blame. I have a lot of very strong opinions about this, but realistically, confusion over all of this will make people less likely to vote. And I have a strong feeling that that is kind of part of the point. But here's what we need to know. You may be asked to prove citizenship even if you've been voting for years. You may be placed in pending status, especially if your paperwork doesn't match perfectly. It may only affect a handful of people. It may affect hundreds of people. I don't know that it will affect thousands of people. It's not going to affect every single person, but it is going to cause some problems for some people. With that said, this is why having those documents is so important. Because then, if you already have the documents in hand, if a problem creeps up, you have the immediate solution. Affidavit ballots will matter more now, but only if voters follow up within 5 business days, because that's part of the affidavit ballot. It is set aside until further information is provided. And if that information is not provided, in this case, that would be your identification and proof of citizenship, then the vote doesn't count. And ultimately, document costs may create barriers for some people. So what can you do? Well, Check your voter registration status at least 30 days before the election. That comes from Ms. Mowens at Mississippi Votes. Personally, I would tell you, I would check your voter registration status every 30 days. Like once a month, go and double check to see if you are listed. You can do that on the Secretary of State's website and a host of other places, including the AFT website. I think it is aftvotes.org. Keep your voter registration mailing address up to date. If you have moved since the last time you voted, you probably want to get this corrected. Um, I know that's going to create some issues for people who still vote at home where they grew up, but they don't live there anymore. But that's going to cause you a problem any way you look at it, because when you move, you are supposed to update your mailing address and vote in the new location. Just saying. Also, go ahead and obtain your proof of citizenship documents as soon as possible if you're already registered. That way, if something is to occur, you have on hand what you need to correct the situation. In short, this bill adds extra steps, extra paperwork, extra chances for voters to fall through the cracks, especially working people, women, and other people who've changed their names, as well as anyone without easy access to required documents. Now, I'm a big believer in showing you my sources because you need to know this. Thank you so much for being here for this presentation. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us here in the office at the Jackson Federation of Teachers. You can email us at mail@jftpsrp.com or jftpsrp@gmail.com. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful day.